The Hellfire missile hit 30 meters ahead, close enough that Rachel Cole felt the shockwave lift her off her boots. She slammed into the desert hardpan, ears screaming, dust choking her lungs. The second missile punched the ridge she'd crossed 2 minutes earlier, exactly where she would have been if she hadn't sprinted. Through the ringing in her skull, one thought cut through. They weren't guessing. Every time she keyed her radio, the strikes came within seconds, precise as surgery. She grabbed for the handset to call for extraction, then froze. A voice crackled through the static, cold and unfamiliar. If you transmit again in the next 10 seconds, you're dead. Rachel Cole had been running for 3 hours when she realized she was being hunted by something that shouldn't exist. The Nevada desert stretched flat and merciless under a white sun. Creosote bushes dotted the hardpan like tombstones. She kept low, using the sparse terrain features for what little cover they offered. Her lungs burned. The plate carrier dug into her shoulders with every step, 20 pounds of Kevlar and ceramic that might as well have been lead. She'd started the morning as a forward observer, attached to a routine UAV training exercise at Creech Air Force Base. Standard reconnaissance work, direct drone assets, coordinate target packages, liaise between ground and air. By 1100 hours, the exercise had gone live, not a drill. Enemy combatants, location unknown, had infiltrated the test range perimeter. By 11:30, her convoy was ambushed. By noon, she was alone. Rachel dropped behind a cluster of rocks, pressing her back against sun-baked stone. She pulled the radio handset from her belt, then hesitated. The last 3 times she'd transmitted, missiles had arrived within 30 seconds. Hellfires from the sound and signature. American ordnance. But nothing friendly about the way they'd bracketed her position with surgical precision. She looked at the handset like it was a rattlesnake. Her training said call for backup. Her instinct said the radio was painting a target on her chest. She compromised. Short burst, encrypted channel, emergency protocol. Any station, this is Reaper 36. Grid November, Tango 7428. Troops in contact, requesting immediate extraction. How copy? Static hissed back at her. Then, a low-frequency hum, almost subsonic, that made her teeth ache. Rachel killed the transmission and ran. She counted to 20 before the ground where she'd been standing erupted in fire and shrapnel. Tom Hargreaves heard the distress call from a lawn chair outside his trailer, 60 miles east of the Creech perimeter. He'd been listening to military frequencies out of habit, the way some men read the newspaper. Old habits from 40 years in signals intelligence didn't die just because the Army handed you a retirement plaque and a handshake. The radio setup in his trailer was better than most forward operating bases. Antennas bristling from the roof like porcupine quills. Receivers spanning every band from VHF to microwave. The call came through garbled, broken by interference that shouldn't have been there. Military encryption was good, but Tom had spent his career breaking codes the Soviets swore were unbreakable. He recognized the signature of someone jamming the signal while simultaneously tracking it. That was the part that made him sit up straight. Jamming or tracking, not both. You either blocked a signal or you traced it. Doing both required equipment that existed in exactly 3 places: NSA headquarters, Cybercom, and whatever black-budget lab was cooking up next-generation electronic warfare. Nobody used that tech on a training range. Tom went inside and fired up the spectrum analyzer. The signal trace looked like a fingerprint, unique and detailed. He ran it through pattern-matching software he'd written back when Reagan was president. The results made his jaw tighten. The tracking wasn't coming from Creech. It was bouncing through civilian infrastructure, cell towers, fiber optic nodes, even satellite uplinks. Someone had weaponized the civilian grid, turning everyday communications into a targeting system. Every transmission Rachel made was being relayed, triangulated, and fed to whoever was launching those missiles. Tom picked up his phone, then thought better of it. If they were sophisticated enough to hijack the civilian network, a phone call would light him up like a Christmas tree. He grabbed his keys and headed for his truck. Rachel found the dried wash just as the sun began its descent. The arroyo cut 10 feet deep into the desert floor, offering the first real cover she'd had since the ambush. She slid down the embankment, boots skidding on loose gravel, and pressed herself against the shadow side. Her body screamed for rest. She gave it 2 minutes. The water in her camelback was getting low. She had 4 magazines left for her M4, 1 for her sidearm. No food, no GPS. She'd smashed it after realizing anything electronic was a liability. She navigated by sun position and dead reckoning, skills they'd taught her at Fort Benning that she'd never expected to actually use. A sound made her freeze. Engine noise. Diesel from the pitch. Coming from the east. Rachel brought her rifle up, finger indexed along the frame. She didn't want to shoot anyone, but if they tracked her this far, she didn't have much choice. The vehicle that rolled into view wasn't military. It was a beat-to-hell Ford F-250, primer gray, with a camper shell that had seen better decades. It stopped 30 meters away, engine idling. The driver's door opened slowly. A man stepped out, hands visible and empty. 60s, maybe older. Gray beard, weathered face, wearing a faded army jacket that looked like it had survived a war or two. "Rachel Cole?" he called out. She didn't lower the rifle. "Who's asking?" "Tom Hargreaves, retired SIGINT. I've been listening to your transmissions." He nodded toward the wash. "Or trying to. Someone's running some very expensive interference." "How'd you find me?" "Same way they are. I'm just better at it." He gestured toward the truck. "And before you shoot me, I'm here to help. Because what's tracking you isn't normal military hardware. It's something a hell of a lot worse." Rachel kept the rifle trained on him. "Talk." Tom pulled a tablet from his jacket, moving slowly. He held it up so she could see the screen. It displayed a network map, nodes and connections spreading like a spiderweb across Nevada. Every time you transmit, the signal gets bounced through civilian infrastructure, cell towers, internet hubs, satellite relays. Someone's built a targeting network using commercial tech. They're tracking you through the grid itself. That's impossible. 5 years ago, yeah, now? Tom shook his head. It's the future of warfare, and you're the field test. Rachel watched him for a long moment. Her instincts said trust no one, but her instincts had also said use the radio, and that had nearly gotten her killed 3 times. She lowered the rifle. Who's doing this? That's the question. Tom powered down the tablet. But whoever they are, they want you dead bad enough to turn half of Nevada into a kill box, which means you know something, saw something, or you're in the way of something big. I'm a forward observer. I call in coordinates in direct drones. I'm not important. Then why are they hunting you like you're Osama bin Laden? Rachel didn't have an answer for that. Tom gestured toward the truck. Come on, sitting in a wash won't save you. We need to find out who built this network and shut it down before they get lucky. And you can do that? I spent 40 years breaking Soviet encryption and jamming Warsaw Pact transmissions. This is the same game, just new players. He started walking back to the truck, then paused. Also, if we don't move in the next 5 minutes, there's a Reaper drone inbound from Creech with your name on it. How do you? I'm monitoring their frequency. They just tasked it 60 seconds ago. Rachel climbed out of the wash. They drove west, deeper into the test range, where Cold War-era bunkers and relay stations dotted the landscape like fossils. Tom kept the truck at exactly 55 miles per hour, fast enough to cover ground but slow enough not to kick up a dust trail visible from orbit. He'd killed his cell phone before leaving home and wrapped the tablet in a Faraday bag, a metal-lined pouch that blocked all electromagnetic signals. Rachel sat in the passenger seat, M4 across her lap, watching the desert blur past. Her mind spun through the events of the last 6 hours, trying to make sense of it. "What was the exercise this morning?" Tom asked. "Routine recon sweep. We were testing new UAV integration protocols." "What kind of protocols?" "Linking ground units directly to drone feeds without going through a command center. Faster targeting, less lag time." She frowned. It was supposed to be cutting edge. Everyone was excited about it. Tom grunted. "Bet they were. You know what you were really testing?" "Enlighten me." "How to turn soldiers into targeting nodes. Feed data from the field directly into an automated strike system. No human oversight, no command approval. Just point, click, boom." Rachel stared at him. "That's not what they told us." "It never is." Tom pointed ahead. "That's where we're going." A concrete structure rose from the desert floor, low, squat, half buried in sand. It looked like a bunker from a war that ended before Rachel was born. "What is it?" "Old relay station from the 50s. Used to bounce signals to nuclear silos. Decommissioned in '89, but the infrastructure's still there. More importantly, it's off the grid. No power, no network, no way to track us." Tom parked behind the structure, out of sight from aerial surveillance. They climbed out into the fading light. The air had started to cool, desert temperatures swinging from furnace to freezer as the sun dropped. Inside, the bunker was exactly what Rachel expected. Dust, graffiti, evidence of decades of abandonment. But Tom moved through it like he owned the place, pulling aside a tarp in the corner to reveal a equipment case. "You've been here before," Rachel said. "I've been a lot of places." Tom opened the case. Inside was a portable spectrum analyzer, a signal generator, and gear Rachel didn't recognize. "First thing we need to do is figure out how they're tracking you. Then we figure out how to break it." He powered up the analyzer, running it through frequency bands. Rachel watched the display, seeing patterns she didn't understand. Tom's face went grim. "This is bad." "How bad?" "The tracking network isn't military. It's civilian infrastructure weaponized by someone with access to root-level control. Cell carriers, internet service providers, satellite networks, they're all compromised." "By who?" "That's what we need to find out." Tom looked up from the screen. "But whoever they are, they're not government. The military doesn't have this level of access to civilian systems. This is private sector. A defense contractor maybe, or..." The tablet in the Faraday bag suddenly emitted a high-pitched tone. Tom's expression shifted from concern to alarm. "That's not possible." "What?" "The bag blocks signals. Nothing should be able to..." He yanked the tablet out. The screen showed a message in plain text. "Nice try, but you can't hide from a system you don't understand." Rachel brought her rifle up, scanning the bunker entrance. "Someone's here." "No." Tom stared at the screen. "Someone's watching. Through the network. They knew we'd come here." "How?" "Because whoever built this system knows every dead zone, every black site, every place someone might try to hide." Tom powered down the tablet, but his hands were shaking. "We need help. Someone who understands this better than I do." "Who?" Tom was quiet for a moment, then, "There's a guy. Used to work for one of the big defense contractors designing surveillance systems. Had a crisis of conscience. Walked away, went off-grid. If anyone knows how this network operates, it's him." "Where is he?" "Not far, but he won't be easy to convince. Last I heard, he doesn't trust anyone in uniform." Rachel looked down at her combat fatigues. "Great. We don't have a choice." Tom started packing the equipment. "Because if we can't shut this network down, you're dead. And so is anyone else who gets in their way." They found Evan Miles in a converted Quonset hut 50 miles north, hidden in a canyon that didn't show up on any map. The structure was camouflaged with desert pattern netting, solar panels angled to minimize reflection. A forest of antennas sprouted from the roof. Not military grade, but close. This was the home of someone who lived on the grid while staying invisible to it. Tom parked a quarter-mile away. They approached on foot as the last light faded from the sky. "Let me do the talking," Tom said. "Evan's got reasons to be paranoid." Such as? Such as he designed surveillance systems for a contractor that sold them to people who shouldn't have them. When he figured out what they were doing, he tried to blow the whistle. They tried to blow him up. Rachel checked her rifle. "And we're trusting this guy?" "We're out of options." They reached the Quonset hut as full dark settled. Tom knocked on the steel door, a specific pattern: 3, pause, 2, pause, 3. A camera above the door swiveled to focus on them. A voice crackled from a hidden speaker. "Tom Hargreaves, didn't expect to see you again. Wish I didn't have to. We need your help, Evan." "Who's the soldier?" "Rachel Cole. She's the one being hunted." A long pause. Then, "Hunted how?" Tom held up the tablet, aiming it at the camera. "Real-time tracking through civilian infrastructure. Weaponized network architecture. Automated targeting. Sound familiar?" The speaker went silent. Rachel counted 30 seconds before the door locks disengaged with a heavy clunk. The door opened to reveal a man in his mid-30s, lean and wary, with the hollowed-out look of someone who hasn't slept well in years. Wireframe glasses, flannel shirt, jeans. He could have been a barista or a software engineer. Instead, he'd built weapons made of code. "Get inside," Evan said. "Fast." The interior of the hut was a hacker's fever dream. Monitors lined every wall, displaying streams of data Rachel couldn't parse. Server racks hummed in the corner, cooling fans creating a constant white noise. The air smelled like solder and stale coffee. Evan locked the door behind them, throwing 4 separate deadbolts. He gestured to a workbench cluttered with disassembled electronics. "Show me the tracking signature." Tom handed him the tablet. Evan's fingers flew across the interface, pulling up data that made his face go pale. "Jesus Christ." "You recognize it?" Tom asked. "Recognize it? I designed the core architecture." Evan looked at Rachel. "How long have they been tracking you?" "Since this morning. Every transmission I make, they pinpoint me within seconds." "That's because you're not being tracked by satellites or drones. You're being tracked by the network itself." Evan pulled up a schematic on the main monitor. "This is a distributed surveillance system. Every cell tower, every internet node, every smart device within range is part of the mesh. When you transmit, the signal bounces through the network and gets triangulated from multiple points simultaneously. It's like having a million spotters all feeding data to one shooter." "You built this?" Rachel's voice was cold. "I built the prototype for disaster response, search and rescue, emergency coordination." Evan's hands were shaking. "It was supposed to save lives, find people trapped in collapsed buildings, coordinate relief efforts. Then my employer sold the design to a shell company with ties to a defense contractor. By the time I figured out what they were doing with it, it was too late." "What were they doing?" "Turning it into a weapon. Automated kill network. No human oversight, no authorization delays. The system identifies a target, calculates their position, and feeds the coordinates to whatever strike asset is available. Drones, artillery, missiles. Completely autonomous." Tom leaned forward. "Who's running it now?" "I don't know. After I walked away, they compartmentalized everything. But someone has access to root-level control. They're using military-grade hardware to track your friend here, which means—" Evan trailed off, staring at the data. "Wait, this doesn't make sense." "What?" "There's not one tracking layer, there's 2. He zoomed in on the signal trace. "The first is the system I designed, but there's a second layer underneath it, older, cruder, but also more sophisticated. Someone else is piggybacking on the network." Rachel and Tom exchanged looks. "You're saying 2 different groups are tracking me?" Rachel asked. "At minimum, maybe more." Evan pulled up another screen, overlaying the two signal patterns. They pulse like competing heartbeats, one fast and digital, the other slower, almost methodical. Think of it like this. The first layer, my system, is a spider web. Touch any strand and the whole web vibrates. The spider knows exactly where you are. He highlighted the second pattern. But this is something else. It's not reactive. It's predictive. It's analyzing your movement patterns, calculating where you'll go before you get there. That's not surveillance architecture. That's artificial intelligence. Rachel felt her stomach drop. AI? Adaptive targeting algorithms. Machine learning that gets smarter every time you run. Evan's voice had gone quiet. I've seen prototypes of this in defense journals. Autonomous hunter-killer systems. The kind of thing that's supposed to be decades away from deployment. Tom's jaw was tight. Someone deployed it early. On her, Evan looked at Rachel. You're not just being hunted, you're being studied. Every move you make teaches the system how to hunt better, which means every time I try to escape, I'm training it to catch me. Rachel's voice was flat. Exactly. The room went silent except for the hum of the servers. Rachel thought about the morning's ambush, how the first missile had been close, but not perfect. The second had been closer. By the third, they'd bracketed her position with surgical precision. Not because the operators were getting better, because the system was learning. There's something else, Evan said, pulling up a third display. The two layers aren't cooperating, they're competing. Look at the timing. Rachel stepped closer to the monitor. She saw what he meant. The patterns overlapped, sometimes synchronized, sometimes divergent. Like two predators circling the same prey, not sure whether to work together or fight each other for the kill. So I've got two enemies, she said, and they don't know about each other. Or they do, and they're racing to see who kills you first. Tom crossed his arms. Either way, that's good news. How is that good news? Because when you're being hunted by two enemies who don't trust each other, you're not the weakest link anymore. They are. Tom glanced at Evan. Can you use that? Make them fight each other? Evan was quiet for a moment, staring at the competing patterns. Maybe, if I can spoof the signatures, make each layer think the other is the threat. He started typing, pulling up code that scrolled faster than Rachel could follow. It's risky. If I get the frequency wrong, I could trigger both systems at once. And if you get it right, they tear each other apart trying to eliminate the false target. Gives you a window to move. Rachel looked at the monitor, at the twin patterns hunting her through the digital dark. She'd spent her career calling in strikes, directing drones onto targets that never saw them coming. Now she was on the other side, the target, the hunted. But she wasn't alone anymore. Do it, she said. Set the trap. Evan worked through the night, fingers dancing across 3 keyboards simultaneously. Rachel kept watch at the door, rifle ready, while Tom monitored radio frequencies for any sign of pursuit. The canyon outside was silent except for the wind. At 0200 hours, Evan leaned back from his workstation, rubbing his eyes. I can disrupt the tracking. Not permanently, but enough to give you a window. How? Tom asked. I'll create a signal trap, a false target that mimics Rachel's transmission signature. When they triangulate it, I'll feed them a loop. They'll think she's in one place while she's actually somewhere else. For how long? Maybe 2 hours, 3 if we're lucky. Evan pulled up a map on the main monitor. But here's the problem. To shut down the network permanently, we need to take out the central coordination node. It's the hub that processes all the tracking data and feeds it to the strike assets. Rachel moved closer to the screen. Where is it? Evan highlighted a location on the map. Here, White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico. Inside a secured facility that's supposed to be testing next-generation communications. That's 1,000 miles away. Which is why they put it there. They figured nobody would look for a kill network inside a military testing facility. Tom studied the map. What kind of security? Military police, biometric access, the works. You'd need authorization from God himself to get inside. But if we do, Rachel said slowly, we can shut it down? If we can access the control room, yes. I can write a kill code that will brick the entire system. Evan pulled up a schematic of the facility. But it's not just about getting in. Once you're inside, you'll need to upload the code directly to the primary server. No remote access, no wireless transmission. Has to be hardwired. Why? Because the system is designed to be unhackable from outside. Air-gapped network, isolated from the internet. The only way in is physical access. Tom leaned forward, studying the schematic. How much time would we need once we're inside? 5 minutes to locate the server room, 2 minutes to bypass local security, 30 seconds to upload the code. Evan looked up. But that's assuming everything goes perfect, which it won't. It never does, Tom said quietly. Rachel was doing the math in her head. 1,000 miles, hostile territory every mile of the way, with 2 different systems hunting her. Even if they made it to White Sands, even if they got inside, they'd be committing half a dozen felonies. Breaking into a secure military facility, sabotaging a classified program, the kind of charges that came with life sentences. But if she didn't do it, the only sentence she'd get was death. Write the code, she said. We'll figure out how to deliver it. Evan looked between them. You're talking about breaking into a secured military facility to destroy a classified program. That's treason. That's self-defense, Rachel shot back. They're hunting me with a system that's not supposed to exist. If I don't shut it down, I'm dead. And if you do shut it down, you'll be court-martialed. Best case. Then I'll take the court-martial. Rachel's voice was steel. Because I signed up to serve my country, not to be killed by a weapon some contractor built to line their pockets. Tom put a hand on her shoulder. Easy, we'll figure it out. But Rachel shook her head. No, he's right, this is treason, technically. But you know what else is treason? Using an autonomous kill system on American soil against American soldiers. Someone built this thing and aimed it at me. I didn't start this war, but I'm damn sure going to finish it. Evan stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned back to his computer. Give me 2 hours. I'll have the kill code ready. Tom nodded. And I'll start planning the infiltration route. Evan's fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of code cascading down the screen. Rachel watched, not understanding the syntax, but recognizing the purpose. Every line was a bullet aimed at the system hunting her. Every function was a knife cutting through the network that wanted her dead. After an hour, Evan paused. He zoomed in on a section of code, frowning. What is it? Tom asked. The secondary tracking layer, the AI system. Evan highlighted a pattern in the data. It's adapting faster than I thought. Look at this. He pulled up the tracking logs from the last 6 hours. The system's response time had decreased with each encounter. The first strike had taken 90 seconds from transmission to impact. The second, 60 seconds. The third, 45. It's learning your patterns, Evan said. Your evasion tactics, your movement speed, even your decision-making process. By the time you get to White Sands, it'll be able to predict your actions before you make them. So what do? Rachel asked. We teach it the wrong lessons. Evan pulled up a new screen showing a simulation. Before you leave, I'll run the signal trap, but I won't just feed it false locations. I'll feed it false behaviors. Make it think you move differently than you actually do. React differently. Think differently. Will that work? Against the system I built? Yes. Against the AI? Evan shrugged. I don't know, but it's the best chance we've got. Tom checked his watch. We need to leave before dawn. Gives us cover of darkness for the first 100 miles. And after that? Rachel asked. After that, we drive fast and hope the trap holds long enough. Tom looked at Evan. You coming with us? Evan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Someone has to upload the code. And since I wrote it, I'm the only one who can troubleshoot if something goes wrong. You don't have to do this, Rachel said. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. Evans saved his work, backing it up to 3 separate drives. I built the system that's trying to kill you. Maybe I can't undo that, but I can damn sure try to stop it. He stood, pulling a go bag from under his workstation. Inside was everything a man needed to disappear. Cash, fake IDs, burner phones, a pistol Rachel recognized as a Glock 19. You've been ready to run, Tom observed. For 2 years. Evans slung the bag over his shoulder. Figured it was only a matter of time before my past caught up with me. Didn't expect it to show up with a forward observer and a Cold War spook. Life's full of surprises, Tom said. Evan walked to the main terminal and initiated a shutdown sequence. Monitors went dark one by one, servers spinning down with a descending whine. Within 2 minutes, the hut was silent and dark. Once we leave, this place is burned, Evans said. They'll trace us here eventually. Find the equipment, the code, everything. Will they be able to track us from here? Rachel asked. Not if I do this right. Evan pulled a small device from his pocket. A radio transmitter, modified with components Rachel didn't recognize. This is the trap. When I activate it, both tracking systems will lock onto a false target. They'll think you're here, in this canyon, for the next 3 hours. And where will we actually be? 200 miles east, hopefully. Evan handed the device to Tom. Don't activate it until we're clear. Once it goes live, the clock starts ticking. Tom pocketed the device. Let's move. They stepped out into the pre-dawn darkness. The desert air was cold, stars blazing overhead in the moonless sky. Rachel could see the silhouettes of the canyon walls, black against black. Somewhere out there, algorithms were hunting her. Machines calculating trajectories, systems learning her patterns. But machines couldn't predict desperation. They couldn't calculate what someone would do when backed into a corner with nothing left to lose. Rachel checked her rifle one more time, then followed Tom and Evan into the dark. The hunters were about to learn what happened when the prey fought back. They drove through the night with the headlights off, Tom navigating by starlight in memory. The Ford's engine rumbled steady, eating miles of empty desert highway. Rachel sat in the passenger seat, M4 between her knees, watching the darkness slide past. Evan was in the back with his laptop, monitoring the signal trap they'd activated 20 miles from his canyon hideout. Status? Tom asked. Both systems took the bait. Evan's face was lit blue by the screen. The first layer, my network, locked on immediately. The second layer took longer, but it's committed now. They think you're still in the canyon. How long? 2 hours, maybe 3. After that, the trap degrades. The systems will realize the signal's synthetic and start searching outward. Rachel checked her watch. 0347 hours. Dawn in 2 hours. They'd covered 140 miles, but they had 800 more to go. We need to ditch the truck before sunrise, Tom said. Satellite coverage increases after dawn. Even without the tracking network, they'll be looking for us the old-fashioned way. Where? Rachel asked. There's a rest stop 30 miles ahead. Truck depot. We swap vehicles, change our signature. Tom glanced at Evan in the rear view. You still have those fake plates? 3 sets, different states. Good, we'll use them. The highway stretched empty ahead, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through nothing. No other vehicles, no lights, just the desert and the stars and the steady burn of distance. Rachel's mind kept circling back to the mission. White Sands was a fortress. Getting inside would require credentials they didn't have, clearances that didn't exist, and luck they couldn't count on. Even if they made it to the control room, uploading Evan's kill code would take time they might not have. But the alternative was dying in the desert, hunted by a system that learned from every mistake she made. Tell me about the facility, she said to Evan. Layout, security, everything. Evan pulled up a schematic on his laptop. White Sands missile range covers 3,000 square miles. The coordination node is here. He highlighted a cluster of buildings in the northern sector, in a complex designated as Echo 7. It's officially listed as a communications research station. What's it really? The nerve center for the tracking network. All surveillance data gets routed through there, processed by the central servers, then distributed to strike assets. If we take out Echo 7, the entire system goes blind. Tom leaned over to look at the screen. Security? 2 layers. Outer perimeter is standard military police, checkpoints, patrols, vehicle inspection. Inner perimeter is where it gets interesting. Biometric access only. Retinal scanners, fingerprint readers, the works. You need to be on the authorized personnel list to get within 100 feet of the server room. And we're not on that list, Rachel said. No, but I am. Rachel turned to look at him. What? I consulted on the original network design. Before I walked away, I had clearance for Echo 7. It might still be in the system. Evan's expression was grim. Assuming they haven't flagged me as hostile, my biometrics should get us through the inner perimeter. That's a big assumption, Tom said. It's the only play we've got. Rachel thought about it. If Evan's clearance had been revoked, they'd be arrested the moment he tried to use it. But if it was still active, they had a chance. What about the outer perimeter? She asked. Military police aren't going to just wave us through. Tom smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Leave that to me. I've got friends at White Sands, or I used to. They drove in silence after that, each lost in their own thoughts. Rachel watched the stars fade as the sky began to lighten in the east. Dawn was coming, and with it, the end of their window. Evan's laptop chimed softly. What is it? Rachel asked. The trap's degrading faster than I expected. The AI layer is running probability analysis on the false signal. It's starting to question whether the data's real. How long? An hour, maybe 90 minutes. Tom pressed down on the accelerator. The speedometer climbed past 80. The rest stop appeared as the first rays of sun touched the horizon. It was a sprawling truck depot. 18-wheelers lined up like sleeping giants. Tom pulled into the far corner, parking between 2 rigs that hadn't moved in days judging by the dust. They worked fast. Evan swapped the plates while Tom disabled the GPS transponder in the Ford's computer. Rachel kept watch, scanning the lot for security cameras or curious onlookers. The place was nearly empty, just a few long-haul drivers grabbing coffee before the next leg. Done, Evan said, climbing back into the truck. Tom started the engine. They pulled out of the lot and merged back onto the highway, now carrying Nevada plates instead of California. A small change, but enough to complicate any search. The sun climbed higher, turning the desert from black to gray to pale gold. Rachel felt exposed in the daylight, like a target painted on the landscape. She kept scanning the sky for drones, knowing they could be anywhere, watching from altitudes too high to see. Tom's radio crackled to life. All units, be advised. Suspects are considered armed and dangerous. Last known position, Nye County, Nevada. Subjects are Rachel Cole, Caucasian female, 20s, military background. Tom killed the volume. Rachel's stomach dropped. They know. Of course they know, Evan said from the back. We sabotaged a classified program and went on the run. They'd be idiots not to put out an APB, which means every cop between here and New Mexico is looking for us. Tom's jaw was tight. We need to get off the main roads, use the back routes. He took the next exit, turning onto a 2-lane road that cut south through empty terrain. The pavement was cracked and faded, barely maintained, perfect for staying invisible. They'd gone 20 miles when Evan's laptop chimed again. The trap just failed, he said quietly. Rachel turned around. What? The AI system figured it out. It's no longer tracking the false signal. It's searching for us. How long before it finds us? I don't know, but it's analyzing satellite feeds, traffic cameras, cell tower data, anything with a digital signature. The moment we ping anything electronic, it'll have us. Tom looked at the fuel gauge. Quarter tank. They'd need to refuel before they reached White Sands, which meant stopping at a gas station, which meant credit cards and security cameras. We'll use cash, Rachel said, following his thought. Keep our faces covered. Cash for gas, sure, but the cameras will still catch the vehicle. License plate readers, automated surveillance. The AI will connect the dots. So what do we do? Tom was quiet for a moment, then, we go analog, completely dark, no phones, no computers, no electronic contact until we're at Echo 7. That means no navigation, Rachel said. No weather updates, no traffic reports. It also means no tracking. Tom pulled over to the side of the road. Evan, shut down your laptop, pull the battery. Rachel, your watch, if it's got GPS, ditch it. They stripped themselves of electronics, piling them by the roadside. Phones, tablets, even Rachel's digital watch. Tom took a road atlas from the glove compartment, an actual paper map, yellowed with age. Welcome to the 20th century, he said, tracing a route with his finger. We follow this highway to Socorro, then cut east to the missile range. No major towns, minimal traffic, old smuggler routes from back when the border was more porous. How do you know smuggler routes? Rachel asked. I've been alive a long time, learned a lot of things I'm not proud of. They got back on the road, now completely dark to the digital world. It felt strange being disconnected. Rachel realized how much she'd relied on technology without thinking about it. GPS for navigation, radio for communication, even her watch for something as simple as the time. Now they had nothing but the sun, the road, and each other. An hour passed, then two. The landscape shifted from desert to scrubland, low hills rising in the distance. They passed abandoned homesteads, rusted vehicles, the bones of a life that had dried up and blown away. Tom's eyes kept flicking to the mirrors. What? Rachel asked. Might be nothing. Or might be something. White SUV. Been behind us for the last 30 miles. Keeping pace, not getting closer. Rachel adjusted her mirror. Sure enough, a white Ford Explorer, maybe half a mile back, matching their speed exactly. Could be coincidence, Evan said. Could be. Tom's voice said he didn't believe it. They drove another 10 miles. The SUV stayed with them, neither closing the distance nor falling back. Tom made a decision. He pulled off onto a dirt road that branched from the highway, heading into a canyon between two mesas. The SUV followed. Not a coincidence, Rachel said, bringing her M4 up. Tom drove faster, the truck bouncing over ruts and rocks. The canyon narrowed, walls rising on either side. He was looking for something, a place to make a stand, or a place to lose their tail. He found both. The canyon opened into a small basin, ringed by red stone cliffs. An old mining operation, long abandoned, rusted equipment scattered like bones. Tom drove behind a collapsed building and killed the engine. Out, he said. Take positions. They moved fast. Rachel took the high ground, scrambling up a pile of tailings to get a clear field of fire. Tom positioned himself behind a loader with flat tires. Evan stayed with the truck, Glock in hand, looking less comfortable with the weapon than Rachel would have liked. The white SUV entered the basin slowly, cautiously. It stopped 50 meters from their position. The engine idled. Nobody got out. Rachel's finger rested on the trigger guard, ready but not committed. Something felt wrong. If this was a hit team, they would have moved already. If it was law enforcement, they would have called for backup. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out, hands raised and visible. 50s maybe, dark hair pulled back. Civilian clothes, jeans, hiking boots, a canvas jacket. She looked more like a park ranger than a threat. Rachel Cole? She called out. Rachel didn't answer. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. Help how? Tom shouted back. By telling you the truth about what you're really up against. She took a step forward. And why White Sands is a trap. They kept their weapons trained on her as she approached. Dr. Chen moved slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements. When she was 20 feet away, Tom told her to stop. "That's close enough," he said. "Start talking." "You're Rachel Cole, yes?" Chen looked at Rachel. "Forward observer, attached to Creech Air Force Base. You were part of a training exercise that went active 12 hours ago." "How do you know that?" "Because I designed the exercise. Or at least, I designed the scenario parameters." Chen lowered her hand slightly. "I'm a civilian contractor with Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. My team has been working on autonomous targeting systems for the past 5 years." "You built the network hunting her," Evan said, climbing down from the truck. Chen's eyes widened slightly when she saw him. "Evan Miles, I thought you were dead." "Disappointed?" "Relieved." Chen turned back to Rachel. "The system tracking you isn't what you think it is. Yes, it's an automated kill network, but it's not being controlled by the people who built it." "Explain," Rachel said. 3 days ago, the system was hacked. Someone gained root access and rewrote the targeting parameters. They turned it into a weapon aimed at specific military personnel. You're not random. You were selected." "Why me?" "Because of what you saw during the exercise. You were testing direct drone integration, linking ground observers to automated strike systems. During the test, your unit identified anomalous signal traffic, foreign communications, encrypted and rerouted through civilian infrastructure. You reported it up the chain." Rachel remembered. A brief notation in her log, barely worth mentioning. Strange frequencies on a band that should have been clear. She'd flagged it for intelligence review, then forgotten about it. "That signal traffic wasn't random," Chen continued. "It was part of a larger operation, a hostile intelligence service using our own civilian grid to coordinate attacks on U.S. soil. When you reported it, you became a liability." "To who?" "To whoever's running the operation." Chen glanced at the sky, nervous. "They couldn't just kill you quietly. That would raise too many questions. So they weaponized the tracking system and made it look like a malfunction. An autonomous system gone rogue. Tragic but explainable." Tom lowered his rifle slightly. "You're saying this is an inside job." "I'm saying someone with very high clearance is protecting a foreign intelligence operation by eliminating anyone who might expose it." Chen pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "I've been gathering evidence for the past 2 days. Names, financial transfers, communication logs. Everything I could find before they locked me out of the system." "Why bring it to us?" Rachel asked. "Because you're the only ones who can stop it. If you go to White Sands, you'll walk straight into an ambush. Echo 7 isn't a coordination node. It's a kill box. They're waiting for you." "How do you know?" "Because I have access to the facility's security feeds. They've reinforced Echo 7 with a tactical team. The moment you enter the perimeter, they'll activate the network and eliminate you as hostile combatants. Clean, legal, defensible." Evan stepped forward. "Then where's the real coordination node?" Chen hesitated. "I don't know." "Bullshit," Evan said. "You designed the system. You know where the servers are." "I designed the architecture, but the physical infrastructure was compartmentalized. Only a handful of people know the actual locations." She looked at the flash drive in her hand. "But the evidence on this drive can lead us there. Financial records showing where the money went. Construction contracts, equipment purchases. If we follow the money, we find the node." Rachel studied the woman. Everything about this felt wrong, but she couldn't pinpoint why. Chen's story made sense. The ambush scenario was exactly what Rachel would have done if she wanted to eliminate someone quietly. But something in the woman's eyes didn't match her words. "Tom?" Rachel asked quietly. He'd been watching Chen the whole time, reading her body language the way he'd spent 40 years reading Soviet communications. When he spoke, his voice was flat. "She's lying." Chen's expression didn't change, but her stance shifted slightly. Defensive. About what? Rachel asked. About not knowing where the node is. Tom lowered his rifle completely, but his hand stayed near his sidearm. She knows. She's known this whole time, but she's not telling us because she needs us to do something first. That's not, Chen started. What do you really want? Tom cut her off. Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its careful neutrality. There are two coordination nodes. Echo 7 is one, but there's a second, hidden inside a civilian data center in Phoenix. The evidence on this drive will expose the Phoenix node, but if you shut down Echo 7 first, the system will route everything through Phoenix and lock down hard. We'll lose our chance. So you want us to hit Phoenix first, Rachel said. I want you to hit Phoenix instead. Echo 7 is a trap, but Phoenix is vulnerable. It's civilian infrastructure, minimal security. With the kill code Evan wrote, you could shut down the entire network before they even know you're there. Rachel looked at Tom, then at Evan. And if you're lying, Evan asked, then I've just signed my own death warrant by talking to you. Chen held out the flash drive. I'm taking the same risk you are, probably a bigger one since I'm a civilian and you're armed. Tom took the drive, turned it over in his hand. How do we know this isn't a tracking device? You don't. But if I wanted to track you, I wouldn't need a flash drive. I just activate the system. Chen gestured at the sky. The fact that missiles aren't raining down on us right now should tell you I'm not your enemy. It was a good point. Rachel made a decision. We'll look at the data. If it checks out, we'll consider Phoenix. But if this is a trap, then kill me, Chen said simply. Better you than them. They drove to an abandoned gas station 10 miles east, a relic from when the highway had been a main route instead of a forgotten shortcut. Tom pulled the truck around back, out of sight. They set up inside the old service bay, using Evan's laptop, battery reinstalled but wireless disabled, to examine Chen's flash drive. The data was extensive. Financial records stretching back 5 years, shell companies, dummy corporations, transfers routed through offshore banks. Evan pulled up one file after another, his expression growing darker with each screen. This is real, he said finally. These are the companies that contracted my design work. And these transfers, he highlighted a series of payments. This is where the money went after they sold the system. To who? Rachel asked. That's the question. Evan opened another file. Communication logs, encrypted but poorly. Looks like someone was in a hurry. The encryption is sloppy, breakable with basic tools. Tom leaned over his shoulder. Can you decrypt it? Give me an hour. While Evan worked, Rachel kept watch outside. The desert was quiet, heat shimmering in waves off the asphalt. She could see for miles in every direction. Empty land, empty sky. Chen sat in the shade of the building, drinking water from a bottle Tom had given her. She looked tired, defeated. How long have you known? Rachel asked. About the hack? 2 days. About the foreign operation? Chen shook her head. I suspected for months. Little things that didn't add up. System behaviors that shouldn't have been possible. Data requests from sources that weren't on the approved list. Why didn't you report it? To who? Everyone I trusted was either dead or reassigned. The people running this operation have access to everything. Classified databases, personnel files, surveillance feeds. Report the wrong person and you disappear. Chen looked up at Rachel. You think I'm a coward for running instead of fighting? Maybe I am, but I've seen what happens to people who fight. They lose. Not always, Rachel said. No? Then why are you running? Rachel didn't have a good answer for that. Inside, Evan made a sound, half surprise, half disgust. They went back into the bay. He had the decrypted communications up on the screen, chat logs between multiple parties. The language was careful, coded, but the meaning was clear enough. It's not one foreign intelligence service, Evan said. It's a consortium. Russian, Chinese, Iranian. They're all using the network. coordinating attacks, sharing intelligence, planning operations on U.S. soil. And someone inside our own government is facilitating it. Tom scrolled through the logs. Do we have names? Call signs only, but look at this. Evan highlighted a series of messages. They're planning something big, a coordinated strike on critical infrastructure, power grids, communication hubs, water treatment facilities. They're calling it Operation Blackout. When? Rachel asked. 72 hours from now. The bay went silent. 72 hours. 3 days to stop an attack that could cripple half the country. Chen stood up. Now do you believe me? This isn't about you anymore, Rachel. It's about stopping a terrorist attack that will kill thousands. Tom looked at Rachel. Your call. Rachel thought about it. Every instinct said this was a trap. Chen's timing was too convenient, her evidence too complete. But if even half of what she said was true, they didn't have a choice. We go to Phoenix, Rachel said, but we do it our way. No contact with anyone outside this group. We hit the data center, upload the kill code, then we get the evidence to someone who can actually do something with it. Agreed, Tom said. Evan was already packing up the laptop. Phoenix is 300 miles east. We can make it by nightfall if we push hard. They loaded back into the truck. Chen climbed into the back with Evan, still looking exhausted. Tom started the engine and pulled back onto the road. They'd gone 50 miles when Tom's expression changed. What? Rachel asked. He was staring at the road ahead, jaw tight. We're being followed again. Rachel checked the mirror. 3 vehicles this time, black SUVs coming up fast. Not cops, Tom said. Wrong profile. Then who? The answer came 30 seconds later when the SUVs opened up with automatic weapons fire. Tom yanked the wheel hard right, taking them off-road into the scrubland. Bullets punched through the tailgate, shattering the rear window. Chen screamed. Evan threw himself flat. Rachel brought her M4 up, firing back through the broken window. The pursuing SUVs split up, flanking them on both sides. Professional tactics, military-grade coordination. Who are they? Rachel shouted over the gunfire. Does it matter? Tom swerved around a boulder, tires spinning in loose dirt. Rachel fired controlled bursts, aiming for the driver's side windshield of the left SUV. The glass spiderwebbed but didn't break, armored. She adjusted, targeting the tires. The SUV swerved but kept coming. The terrain was getting rougher. Tom was driving flat out, pushing the old Ford to its limits. But the SUVs were newer, faster, built for pursuit. They crested a ridge and dropped into a dry riverbed. Tom followed it, using the banks for cover. The SUVs came after them, closing the distance. Evan grabbed his Glock and fired out the side window, wild shots that didn't come close. But it was enough to make the right side SUV back off slightly. Rachel's M4 clicked empty. She dropped the magazine, slapped in a fresh one. 3 mags left, 60 rounds total. Not enough for a sustained firefight. We need to shake them, she yelled. Tom saw something ahead, a narrow gap where the riverbed split around a rock formation. He aimed for it, gunning the engine. The Ford scraped through with inches to spare. The lead SUV tried to follow and got wedged between the rocks. The second SUV braked hard, trying to reverse. The third went around looking for another route. It bought them 30 seconds. Tom climbed out of the riverbed and headed for a cluster of hills to the north. The terrain was brutal, loose rocks, steep grades, vegetation that scraped the sides of the truck. But it was too rough for the SUVs to follow at speed. They crested the highest hill and dropped down the other side, out of sight. Tom killed the engine. They sat in silence, breathing hard, listening for pursuit. Rachel kept her rifle trained on the ridgeline, waiting for the SUVs to appear. 1 minute passed, then 2. Did we lose them? Evan asked quietly. Maybe. Tom was scanning the terrain with the practiced eye of someone who'd escaped ambushes before. Or maybe they're calling in air support. As if on cue, Rachel heard it. The distant buzz of a drone, getting closer. "Move," Tom said, starting the engine. But before they could pull away, Chen grabbed Rachel's shoulder. "Wait, look." She was pointing at something on Evan's laptop screen. He'd left it open, still displaying the decrypted communications. But now there was a new message, just posted. "Phoenix team, targets acquired, executing Protocol 7. Rachel felt her blood go cold. "What's Protocol 7? Chen's face had gone pale. "Drone strike authorization. They're calling in a hellfire." Tom didn't wait. He floored the accelerator, the truck fishtailing as it struggled for traction on the loose ground. Rachel looked up, searching the sky. The drone was still invisible, too high to see, but she could hear it now, a constant mechanical whine that made her skin crawl. She'd called in dozens of drone strikes during her career. She knew the procedure, the timeline. From authorization to impact, 3 to 5 minutes. "How long?" she asked Chen. "Protocol 7 is expedited, maybe 90 seconds. 90 seconds to find cover or die." Tom was driving down the hill, heading for a cluster of boulders at the base. Overhead cover, the only thing that might save them. They were 50 meters away when Rachel saw the laser designator paint the ground ahead of them. A bright red dot, invisible to the naked eye, but clear as day through her rifle scope. "We're marked!" she shouted. Tom swerved, trying to break the lock. But the laser followed them, tracking their movement with machine precision. 30 meters to the boulders. Rachel could hear the missile now, a sound like tearing paper, getting louder. 20 meters. Tom was screaming something, but Rachel couldn't hear over the roar in her ears. 10 meters. The truck slid sideways into the boulder cluster, just as the hellfire impacted 50 feet behind them. The explosion lifted the rear of the truck, slamming it back down hard. The world went white, then red, then black. Rachel felt herself thrown forward against the seatbelt, ribs compressing, the breath knocked from her lungs. When her vision cleared, she tasted blood and dust. The truck was on its side, wedged between two boulders. The rear end was gone, blown apart by the blast. The engine was dead. Rachel fumbled with her seatbelt, got it loose, and fell onto what used to be the driver's side door. Her ears were ringing. Her head throbbed. "Tom!" she called out. Her voice sounded distant, muffled. He was beside her, pinned by the collapsed roof. Blood ran down his face from a gash above his eye. "I'm good," he said, but his voice was weak. Rachel kicked out the windshield and crawled through, dragging her rifle with her. She turned back to help Tom, but Evan was already there, pulling him out of the wreckage. Chen emerged last, clutching the laptop like it was a life preserver. Her face was cut from flying glass, but she was mobile. "Can you walk?" Rachel asked Tom. He tried to stand and his leg buckled. When he looked down, Rachel saw why. Shrapnel had torn through his calf, the wound bleeding heavily. "Shit," Tom muttered. Rachel stripped off her belt and wrapped it around his leg above the wound, pulling tight. Tom grunted but didn't cry out. "We need to move," Evan said, pointing. "They'll send ground teams to confirm the kill." He was right. They couldn't stay here. Rachel looked around, getting her bearings. They were at the base of the hill, surrounded by broken terrain. No vehicles, no shelter, no way to call for help even if they wanted to. And somewhere overhead, the drone was circling, waiting for movement. She helped Tom to his feet. He leaned on her heavily, his injured leg dragging. "There," Chen said, pointing to a ravine carved into the hillside. "We can use that for cover." They moved as fast as Tom's injury would allow. Rachel kept scanning the sky, waiting for the next strike. But it didn't come. Maybe they'd lost the track in the rocks. Maybe the drone had expended its payload. Or maybe whoever was controlling it wanted them on foot, vulnerable, so the ground teams could finish the job. They reached the ravine and dropped into it, using the high walls for cover. Tom collapsed against the stone, breathing hard. His pants were soaked with blood. Rachel examined the wound. The shrapnel had gone deep, possibly nicking the bone. He needed a hospital, surgery, antibiotics, things they didn't have and couldn't get. How bad? Tom asked. You'll live, Rachel lied, but we need to stop the bleeding. She had basic field medical training, enough to keep someone alive until the medics arrived. But there were no medics coming, just them, injured and alone, with enemies closing in from all sides. Evan was watching the sky, Glock in hand. Chen sat against the opposite wall, still clutching the laptop. We need to keep moving, Chen said. Phoenix is still. Phoenix can wait, Rachel cut her off. Tom can't walk, and we're out of vehicles. We're done running. Then what do we do? Rachel thought about it. They couldn't go forward. They couldn't go back. Every direction led to the same place. A bullet or a missile or a slow death in the desert. Unless they changed the game. Evan, she said, can you access the tracking network from here? Not without wireless, and if I turn it on, they'll find us immediately. That's the point. Rachel checked her rifle. 2.5 magazines left. We've been running because we didn't want to be found. But what if we wanted to be found? What if we made them come to us? Tom looked at her, understanding dawning through the pain. An ambush. They're hunting us with technology. Drones, satellites, automated systems. But those systems have operators, human beings making decisions. Rachel smiled, but there was no humor in it. And human beings make mistakes. They set the trap in the ravine. Rachel positioned herself at the high end, where the walls narrowed to a choke point. Evan took the low end with his Glock and 2 spare magazines Rachel gave him. Chen stayed with Tom in the middle, treating his wound with supplies from a first aid kit they'd salvaged from the wrecked truck. You sure about this? Evan asked. No, Rachel admitted, but I'm sure about what happens if we don't try. She helped Evan set up his laptop, balancing it on a rock. He booted it up, enabled wireless, and waited. How long until they track us? Rachel asked. Already done, Evan pointed at the screen. Multiple systems just locked on. We'll have ground teams in 15 minutes, maybe less. Air support in 20 if they scramble another drone. Then we'd better work fast. The plan was simple. Let the ground teams come in thinking they had easy targets, then hit them from 2 sides in the narrow ravine. Use the terrain to negate their numbers. Make them bunch up where the walls got tight. It was a terrible plan. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and down to limited ammunition. But it was the only plan they had. Rachel checked her sight picture one more time. The M4 was zeroed for 200 meters, which was about twice the range she'd have in the ravine. Close quarters, fast decisions, no room for error. She heard them before she saw them. The crunch of boots on gravel, the click of weapons being readied. Professional sounds, disciplined. 4 men appeared at the high end of the ravine, moving in a standard tactical formation. Black fatigues, no insignia. Contractors probably. Mercenaries working for whoever was running the operation. They moved carefully, checking corners, covering each other's advance. Good tactics, but they were expecting wounded prey, not an ambush. Rachel let them get halfway into the kill zone before she opened fire. The first burst caught the point man in the chest, knocking him back. The second man tried to return fire, but Rachel had already shifted position, using the ravine wall for cover. Her next burst caught him in the shoulder. From the low end, Evan opened up with a Glock. His shots went wide, but they achieved the objective, forcing the other 2 contractors to take cover, pinning them in place. Rachel changed magazines, moved to a new position, and fired again. The 3rd contractor went down. The 4th tried to retreat, but Evan had him zeroed. 3 shots, 1 hit. The contractor stumbled and fell. It was over in 15 seconds. Rachel moved down the ravine quickly, checking the bodies. All 4 were down, wounded, or dead. She collected their weapons, 3 AR-15s and a submachine gun, and their ammunition. She also found their radios, already squawking with demands for a status report. Viper 2-1, report, what's your status? Rachel keyed the mic. Viper 2-1 is down, All units down. Targets are armed and she released the key, letting them fill in the blanks. Within 30 seconds, the radio traffic exploded. Confusion, panic, commanders demanding information. Good. Confusion was a weapon. Evan was staring at the bodies. We just killed 4 people. 4 people who were trying to kill us, Rachel said, but her voice was hollow. She'd shot people before, in combat, insurgents, hostiles, enemy combatants. But those had been clear-cut situations, orders from above, rules of engagement, the framework of war. This was different. These contractors weren't enemy soldiers. They were Americans probably, just hired guns doing a job. But they'd tried to kill her, and she'd responded. Tom's voice cut through her thoughts. Rachel, we need to move. They'll send more. He was right. They'd bought themselves a few minutes, nothing more. She helped Tom to his feet. His leg was wrapped in bandages Chen had improvised from torn clothing, but blood was already seeping through. Can you walk? Can I choose? Tom leaned on her, favoring his good leg. They moved down the ravine, away from the bodies. Evan carried the laptop and 2 of the captured rifles. Chen brought up the rear, looking shaken. Where are we going? Chen asked. Away from here, Rachel said. But away led nowhere. They were on foot in hostile territory with limited supplies and a wounded man who was getting worse by the hour. Rachel's mind spun through options, scenarios, probabilities. None of them good. Then Evan's laptop chimed. What now? Rachel asked. Evan checked the screen. We've got a problem. The network just went active across multiple nodes. Not just tracking us, tracking everything. Cell phones, vehicles, electronic devices. They've widened the net. Looking for us? Looking for anyone. Evan showed her the display. They're running a dragnet across 3 states. Every digital device is being monitored, analyzed, cross-referenced. If you so much as use a credit card or make a phone call, they'll know. That's illegal, Chen said. So is killing federal employees with automated weapons. Tom's voice was weak but sharp. I don't think legality is their primary concern. They reached the end of the ravine, emerging into a broader valley. The afternoon sun was beginning its descent, shadows lengthening across the desert floor. Rachel scanned the horizon. No vehicles, no signs of pursuit, but she knew better than to trust the quiet. We need shelter, she said. Somewhere to regroup, treat Tom's wound, figure out our next move. There's an old ranger station about 5 miles north, Chen said. Abandoned, off the grid. It's not much, but it's better than being exposed out here. Rachel looked at Tom. His face was gray, his breathing shallow. 5 miles on foot with an injured leg. He might not make it, but staying here meant dying for sure. We go, Rachel said. Tom, you lean on me. Evan, watch our 6. Chen, stay close. They started walking. The ranger station materialized from the heat haze like a ghost. It was a single-story structure, weathered wood and peeling paint, perched on a low rise with a view of the valley below. The windows were boarded up, the door hanging crooked on its hinges. It looked like it had been abandoned for decades, but it had 4 walls and a roof. Right now, that was luxury. Rachel helped Tom inside, settling him against the back wall where he'd have cover if anyone came through the door. His leg was worse. The bleeding had slowed, but infection was setting in. She could see it in the way the flesh around the wound had started to swell and discolor. We need antibiotics, she said to Chen. I don't have any. Then we need to find some. Rachel looked at Evan. Is there a town nearby? Somewhere we can get medical supplies? Evan checked the laptop's offline maps. There's a small community about 20 miles west, maybe 200 people, probably has a clinic or pharmacy. 20 miles, Rachel looked at Tom. Can you hold for that long? Been shot worse, Tom said, but his voice was barely audible. Rachel made a decision. Evan, you and I will go. Chen, you stay with Tom. Keep him comfortable. If we're not back by dawn, Head west on your own. What about Phoenix? Chen asked. Phoenix can wait until Tom's stable. We don't have time. Operation Blackout is 72 hours away, Rachel cut her off. We've got time to save Tom's life first. Chen started to argue, then saw Rachel's expression and stopped. Some battles weren't worth fighting. Rachel and Evan gathered what they needed: the captured AR-15s, ammunition, water. They'd move fast and light, hit the town after dark, grab what they needed, and get back before sunrise. Before they left, Tom grabbed Rachel's hand. Listen to me, he said, his grip surprisingly strong. If you have to choose between me and the mission, there's no choice, Rachel said. We're all getting out of this. You don't know that. Then I'll make it true. Tom smiled, but there was sadness in it. You remind me of someone I used to know, another forward observer back in the Gulf. She had the same stubborn streak, same unwillingness to leave anyone behind. What happened to her? She died trying to save her unit, took a mortar round calling in a medevac. Tom's eyes drifted closed. Stubborn to the end. Rachel squeezed his hand, then let go. She picked up her rifle and headed for the door. The sun was setting as they left the ranger station, painting the desert in shades of orange and red. Rachel and Evan moved quickly, using the fading light for cover. They didn't talk much. Evan was focused on navigation, checking his offline maps every few hundred meters to stay on course. Rachel watched their surroundings, looking for threats. After an hour, Evan spoke. You think Tom's going to make it? I don't know, Rachel admitted. Infection's setting in fast. Without antibiotics, it's going to get worse. And if we can't find any? Rachel didn't answer. They both knew what happened next. They crested a low hill and saw lights in the distance. The town, small and scattered, like someone had thrown a handful of stars across the desert floor. Stay low, Rachel said. We go in quiet, find what we need, get out. They approached from the north, avoiding the main road. The town was exactly what Rachel expected. A gas station, a general store, a handful of houses, and a small medical clinic with a faded sign that read, Desert Springs Community Health. The clinic was dark, closed for the night. Rachel tried the door. Locked. She looked at Evan. Can you pick it? I'm a hacker, not a burglar. Same skill set, different application. Evan pulled a multi-tool from his pocket and went to work on the lock. It took him 3 minutes, but the door opened with a soft click. They slipped inside, using their phone lights on the dimmest setting. The clinic was small, a reception area, an exam room, a supply closet. Rachel headed straight for the closet. Inside, she found what they needed: antibiotics, bandages, pain medication, IV fluids. She loaded everything into a backpack they'd brought. Got it, she whispered to Evan. Let's go. They were halfway to the door when the lights came on. A man stood in the doorway, older, wearing a sheriff's deputy uniform. His hand rested on his sidearm, but he hadn't drawn it yet. This is a crime scene now, he said quietly. You want to tell me what you're doing? Rachel and Evan froze. The deputy's name was Ed Morrison, and he looked like he'd been doing this job for 30 years. He was in his 60s, graying hair, weathered face, the kind of cop who'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed by any of it. His hand stayed near his weapon, but his posture was more cautious than aggressive. I'll ask again, he said. What are you doing in the clinic? Rachel made a decision. She lowered her rifle slowly, keeping her hands visible. We need medical supplies. My friend's been shot. He's dying. Morrison's eyes flicked to the backpack, then to Evan, then back to Rachel. He was calculating, weighing options. You're the ones they're looking for, he said. Rachel Cole, wanted for questioning in connection with a terrorist plot. That's not true. Federal Bulletin says otherwise, says you're armed and dangerous, says you've killed multiple people. We killed contractors who were trying to kill us. Rachel kept her voice steady. We're not terrorists. We're trying to stop one. Morrison's expression didn't change. That's what they all say. You don't believe that. If you did, you would have shot us already. Maybe I just want to hear your story before I decide. Rachel glanced at Evan. He was tense, hand near his weapon. One wrong move and this would go bad fast. There's a coordinated attack planned against U.S. infrastructure, Rachel said. 72 hours from now. Power grids, communication hubs, water treatment, thousands of people will die. We're trying to stop it, but the people behind it have weaponized a surveillance network to hunt us. That's a hell of a story. It's the truth. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I've been a cop for 34 years. I've heard every lie, every excuse, every justification. And you know what? Most of them sound just like the truth. So you don't believe me? I didn't say that. Morrison finally took his hand off his weapon. I said it sounds like the truth, which means either you're telling it or you're the best liar I've ever met. He walked past them to the supply closet, looked at what they'd taken. Your friend's got an infected wound? Shrapnel from a hellfire strike. Jesus. Morrison grabbed additional supplies, stronger antibiotics, surgical tools, sterile dressings. He loaded them into Rachel's backpack. You know how to treat a wound like that? Basic field medicine, nothing advanced. Then you'll need help. He pulled out his phone. Rachel brought her rifle up. Don't. Easy. I'm calling Doc Jensen. He's retired, lives 2 streets over. If your friend's as bad as you say, he needs a real doctor. We can't trust anyone. You're trusting me. Morrison met her eyes. And I'm trusting you. So let's both hope we're not making a mistake. He made the call. 30 minutes later, an old man arrived at the clinic carrying a weathered medical bag. He looked at Rachel and Evan, then at Morrison. These the fugitives? Yep. And we're helping them? Yep. Doc Jensen shrugged. I've done stranger things. Where's the patient? They drove back to the ranger station in Morrison's patrol vehicle. Doc Jensen in the passenger seat, Rachel and Evan in the back. Morrison didn't ask questions. He drove in silence, occasionally checking his radio, which he'd turned down low. Rachel watched the road behind them, waiting for headlights that never appeared. When they reached the station, Chen met them at the door, Glock raised. They're with us, Rachel said quickly. Chen lowered the weapon but didn't holster it. Who are they? Help! Rachel pushed past her. How's Tom? Not good. He's been drifting in and out of consciousness. The fever's getting worse. Doc Jensen didn't wait for introductions. He went straight to Tom, kneeling beside him and opening his medical bag. He cut away the makeshift bandage, examined the wound, and swore under his breath. How long's he been like this? 6 hours, Rachel said. He's septic. Blood infection. Another few hours and it would have killed him. Jensen pulled out a syringe and a vial. I'm going to start him on IV antibiotics, aggressive dosing, but I'll need to debride the wound, remove the dead tissue. It's going to hurt. Do it, Tom said, his voice barely a whisper. Jensen worked quickly and efficiently. He cleaned the wound, removed the damaged tissue, packed it with antibiotic gauze. Tom gritted his teeth through most of it, only making a sound when Jensen went deep. When it was done, Jensen set up an IV drip and started the antibiotics flowing. He needs to stay still for at least 24 hours, Jensen said. Let the antibiotics work. If the infection doesn't start to improve, he needs a hospital. We can't go to a hospital, Rachel said. Then you'd better pray this works. Morrison had been standing by the door, watching the room. Now he spoke. You said something about an attack. Operation Blackout. What exactly are we talking about? Rachel looked at Evan. He pulled up the decrypted communications on his laptop and showed Morrison the plans. The deputy read in silence, his expression darkening with each line. This is real? We believe so, Evan said. The evidence is solid. Financial transfers, communication logs, equipment purchases. Someone's planning a coordinated strike on civilian infrastructure. Who? That's what we're trying to find out. But whoever they are, they've got help from inside the government. High-level clearances, access to classified systems. Morrison was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "What do you need from me?" "Nothing," Rachel said. "You've done enough. We can't ask you to—" "I'm not asking permission." Morrison's voice was hard. "If what you're saying is true, this is my country too. I took an oath to protect it. So tell me what you need." Rachel looked at Tom, still unconscious but breathing steadier now, then at Evan and Chen, then back at Morrison. "We need to get to Phoenix. There's a coordination node hidden in a civilian data center. If we can shut it down, we can stop the attack. But we need transportation, supplies, and someone who knows the area." "I know Phoenix," Morrison said. "Worked there for 10 years before I moved out here. And I've got contacts, good people who don't ask too many questions." "This is treason," Chen said quietly. "If they find out you helped us—" "Then they find out," Morrison looked at her. "I'd rather commit treason and save lives than follow orders and watch people die." Rachel felt something loosen in her chest. For the first time since this started, they had an ally. Someone who believed them, who was willing to risk everything to help. "When can we leave?" she asked. "Tom needs to stabilize first," Jensen said. "At least 12 hours, maybe 24. "We don't have 24 hours. "Then you'll have to decide what's more important, the mission or your friend." Rachel looked at Tom again. His color was better, his breathing less labored. The antibiotics were working, but he was still fragile, still close to the edge. Evan spoke up. "Operation Blackout is 60 hours away. We can wait 12 hours for Tom to stabilize and still make it to Phoenix with time to spare." Rachel nodded slowly. 12 hours, then we move." Morrison checked his watch. "I'll be back at dawn with transportation, something that won't attract attention. In the meantime, get some rest. You look like you need it." He and Jensen left, disappearing into the darkness. Rachel sat down against the wall, her rifle across her lap. She was exhausted, every muscle aching, her mind fuzzy with fatigue. But she couldn't sleep, not yet. Evan and Chen were both sprawled on the floor, already out. Tom was unconscious, the IV drip steady. Rachel watched them in the dim light, these people she'd known for less than 24 hours, who'd become her entire world. A forward observer, a hacker, a DARPA scientist, and a Cold War spook, united by circumstance, bound by necessity. She thought about what Morrison had said. "I'd rather commit treason and save lives than follow orders and watch people die." It was the same choice she'd made, the same choice they'd all made. Sometimes the right thing and the legal thing weren't the same. Rachel closed her eyes and let herself drift. Somewhere in the darkness, algorithms were still hunting, drones circling, systems calculating. But for now, in this forgotten ranger station in the middle of nowhere, they were safe. For now. Morrison returned at dawn with a white panel van and 2 duffel bags full of supplies. Rachel was already awake, watching the sunrise paint the desert in shades of gold. She'd slept in shifts, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, keeping watch while the others rested. Her body felt like it had been beaten with hammers, but her mind was sharp. Tom was sitting up when Morrison arrived, color back in his face. The antibiotics had worked. He was weak, still hurt, but functional. Doc Jensen had stayed through the night, monitoring the IV drip, changing the dressing every few hours. "How's the patient?" Morrison asked. "Stable," Jensen said, "but he shouldn't be moving. That leg needs rest." "We don't have time for rest," Tom said. His voice was stronger than it had been 12 hours ago. "Phoenix is a 9-hour drive. Operation Blackout goes live in 58 hours. We move now, or we don't move at all." Morrison nodded. "Van's fueled up. I've got food, water, medical supplies, and some equipment that might be useful." "What kind of equipment?" Rachel asked. Morrison opened one of the duffel bags. Inside were tactical vests, night vision goggles, bolt cutters, and something that looked like a police tactical ram. "Where'd you get this?" Evan asked. "Evidence locker. Gear we confiscated from various operations over the years." Morrison's expression was grim. "I figured if we're committing crimes, might as well use the tools." They loaded into the van, Tom stretched out in the back with Jensen monitoring him, Rachel in the passenger seat, Evan and Chen behind her with the laptop and equipment. Morrison drove. They pulled onto the highway as the sun climbed higher, heading east toward Phoenix. The drive was long and tense. Morrison stayed on back roads, avoiding major highways where law enforcement presence would be heavier. The APB was still active, Rachel's face on every police terminal between Nevada and Arizona. One wrong traffic stop and it was over. Evan spent the drive analyzing Chen's data, cross-referencing financial records with facility locations. The Phoenix data center was called Sentinel Solutions, a civilian company that provided cloud services to government contractors. On paper, it was legitimate. In reality, it was the hidden nerve center for the tracking network. "Security profile?" Rachel asked. "Light," Evan said. "It's a civilian facility, not military. Standard security, badge access, cameras, maybe 2 or 3 guards on site. They're not expecting an assault." "Because nobody knows what's really there," Chen added. "The coordination node is hidden in the server infrastructure. From the outside, it looks like any other data center." Tom leaned forward from the back, wincing as his legs shifted. "Access points?" "Main entrance requires badge and biometrics. Service entrance around back uses physical keys. Loading dock is usually open during business hours, but locked at night." "So we go in during business hours," Rachel said. "Blend in with legitimate traffic." "Blend in how?" Morrison asked. "You're wanted fugitives. The moment someone recognizes you." "They won't," Rachel turned to Chen. "You still have access credentials?" "I did, but after 2 days off the grid, they've probably deactivated my clearances." "But they don't know you're with us. As far as anyone knows, you went dark independently." Rachel was thinking it through. "You show up, tell them you were investigating the breach, went off grid for safety. You need access to the servers to trace the intrusion." Chen thought about it. "It might work if my credentials are still active. And if they're not, then we improvise." They reached Phoenix just after sunset. The city sprawled across the desert floor, a grid of lights stretching to the horizon. Morrison navigated through surface streets, avoiding downtown, heading toward the industrial district where Sentinel Solutions was located. The data center was a nondescript 3-story building tucked between a warehouse and a trucking depot. No signs, no markings, just a street number and a parking lot with a dozen vehicles. Morrison parked 2 blocks away, killing the engine. "This is it," he said. "Last chance to walk away." Nobody moved. "All right then." Morrison checked his watch. "It's 2100 hours. Shift change happens at 2200. We go in at 2145, late enough that people are thinking about going home, early enough that the night shift hasn't settled in." Rachel ran through the plan one more time. Chen would go in first, using her credentials. If she got through, she'd unlock the service entrance for the rest of them. They'd move to the server room, upload Evan's kill code, and extract before security realized what was happening. Simple, clean, probably doomed. "What about exfil?" Evan asked. "I'll stay with the van," Morrison said. "Keep the engine running. You've got 15 minutes from entry to extraction. After that, police response times mean we're boxed in." 15 minutes, Rachel repeated. "Get in, upload the code, get out." "Assuming nothing goes wrong," Tom added. "When has anything gone right?" Evan muttered. They geared up in the back of the van, tactical vests under civilian jackets, weapons concealed but accessible. Rachel checked her M4 one more time. 1 magazine left, 30 rounds. After that, she was down to her sidearm. Chen climbed out first, straightening her jacket, composing herself. She looked nervous but determined. "You don't have to do this," Rachel said. This is our fight, not yours. It became my fight the moment I built that system. Chen's voice was steady. I can't undo what I created, but I can make sure it doesn't kill anyone else. She walked toward the building, badge in hand. Rachel, Evan, and Tom waited in the darkness, watching. Chen reached the main entrance, swiped her badge. The light turned green. She was through. Rachel let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Phase 1 complete. They gave Chen 2 minutes to reach the service entrance. Then Rachel and Evan moved, keeping to the shadows, Tom limping behind them with Morrison's support. The service entrance was a steel door with a push-bar handle. Chen opened it from the inside, looking relieved. "I'm in the system," she whispered. "Credentials still active, but security's been increased. 2 extra guards, cameras monitoring all access points." "Can you loop the feeds?" Evan asked. "Already done. We've got 10 minutes before the loop cycles and someone notices." They moved inside, Chen leading the way through maintenance corridors and stairwells. The building was quiet, most staff gone for the day. They passed a break room where 2 guards sat watching a basketball game, oblivious. The server room was on the 3rd floor, behind a door that required both badge and biometric access. Chen pressed her thumb to the scanner. The door unlocked with a soft click. Inside was a cathedral of technology. Server racks stretched from floor to ceiling, LEDs blinking like stars, cooling systems humming with constant white noise. The air was cold, temperature controlled to keep the equipment from overheating. "Where's the coordination node?" Rachel asked. Evan was already moving, laptop open, scanning for the network signature. "There, rack 17, servers 12 through 20. They navigated through the rows of equipment until they found it. The servers looked identical to all the others, but Evan's laptop showed the distinctive signature of the tracking network. "This is it," he said, "the heart of the system." He pulled out a USB drive, the kill code he'd written, compressed into a small package that would propagate through the network like a virus, shutting down the coordination protocols and bricking the entire infrastructure. "How long?" Rachel asked. 30 seconds to upload, 2 minutes to propagate. After that, the system's dead." Evan plugged the drive into a maintenance port and initiated the upload. The progress bar crawled across the screen. 10%, 20, 30. Rachel kept watch at the door, rifle ready. Tom sat against a server rack, favoring his injured leg. Chen monitored her tablet, watching the security feeds. 50%, 60. "We've got a problem," Chen said quietly. Rachel turned. "What?" "Look at this." Chen held up her tablet, showing a data stream. The coordination node isn't just running the tracking network. It's also supporting an active military operation. "What operation?" Chen pulled up a tactical display. "Special Operations Team, Syria. They're using the network for real-time surveillance and targeting support. If we shut this down, we blind them." Rachel felt her stomach drop. "How many personnel?" 12 operators, deep penetration mission. They're relying on this network for intel and extraction coordination. "When?" "Right now. The mission's live." Evan's upload hit 70%. 80. Rachel looked at the screen, then at Chen. "If we shut this down, what happens to them?" "They lose their eyes. No surveillance, no targeting data, no coordination with extraction assets." Chen's face was pale. "They'll be operating blind in hostile territory." "Will they die?" "I don't know, but their chances drop significantly. 90%. Rachel's mind was racing. 12 operators, American soldiers doing their jobs, following orders, trusting that the technology supporting them would be there when they needed it. If she completed the upload, she'd save herself and stop Operation Blackout. But she might kill 12 soldiers in the process. If she aborted the upload, Operation Blackout would proceed. Thousands of civilians dead. But the operators in Syria would have their support. 95%. "Rachel," Evan said quietly, "I need a decision. 5 seconds to abort." She thought about the contractors in the ravine, the people she'd killed in self-defense, the bodies left behind. She thought about Tom's words. She died trying to save her unit. She thought about the oath she'd taken, to support and defend. "Abort," she said. Evan's hands froze over the keyboard. "What?" "Abort the upload. We can't kill those operators." "But Operation Blackout. We'll find another way." Rachel's voice was firm. "But I won't sacrifice 12 soldiers to save myself." Tom spoke up from where he sat. "Rachel, think about this. Thousands of lives." "I am thinking about it, and I'm thinking about 12 soldiers who trust us to support them." She looked at Evan. "Abort. Now." Evan hit the kill switch. The upload stopped at 97% and rolled back, removing itself from the system. The coordination node kept running. Chen stared at her. "You just chose to die." "Maybe, but I chose to die on my terms, not theirs." Rachel ejected the USB drive. "We find another way to stop Blackout, one that doesn't require killing friendly forces." "There is no other way," Chen said. "Phoenix was our only shot." "Then we make a new shot." Rachel headed for the door. "Come on, we need to move before—" Alarms shrieked through the building. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Rachel heard boots pounding on stairs, voices shouting commands. "The security loop just failed," Chen said, checking her tablet. "They know we're here." They ran. Rachel took point, M4 up, clearing corners. Tom limped behind her, leaning on Evan. Chen brought up the rear, looking terrified. The stairwell was their only exit, 3 floors down, then out through the service entrance, where Morrison waited with the van. They made it to the second-floor landing before they ran into security. 2 guards, armed with pistols and radios, coming up fast. They saw Rachel and went for their weapons. She didn't want to shoot them. They were security guards, not soldiers, just doing their jobs. But they were between her and freedom. Rachel fired a burst over their heads. The guards hit the ground, scrambling for cover. It bought them 5 seconds. They kept running, reaching the first-floor landing. The service entrance was 50 feet away, straight shot down the corridor. More guards appeared at the main entrance, blocking their exit. "Backstairs!" Tom shouted, pointing to an emergency exit. They pivoted, crashing through the fire door into a narrow stairwell that descended into the building's basement. The door slammed behind them, and Rachel heard the magnetic lock engage. They were trapped. The basement was a maze of storage rooms and mechanical spaces. Pipes overhead, concrete walls, dim lighting. Rachel led them through it, looking for another way out. "There," Evan pointed. "Loading dock, should exit to the alley." They ran toward it, boots echoing on concrete. Behind them, Rachel heard the stairwell door being forced open. Security was coming. The loading dock had a rolling door, chain operated. Tom and Evan grabbed the chain and pulled. The door rose with agonizing slowness. 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, enough. They rolled under it into the alley beyond. Morrison's van was already there, engine running. He'd circled around when he heard the alarms. "Move!" he shouted. They piled into the van. Morrison hit the gas before Rachel even had the door closed. Tires screeched as they accelerated out of the alley onto the street. Behind them, guards spilled out of the loading dock, weapons drawn. But they were too late. Morrison drove hard, taking corners fast, putting distance between them and the data center. After 10 minutes of evasive maneuvering, he slowed down, blending into traffic. "Everyone intact?" he asked. Rachel did a head count. "All present, no new injuries." "We're good. Did you upload the code?" "No." Morrison glanced at her in the mirror. "Why not?" Rachel explained about the operators in Syria, the choice she'd made. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "That took guts. Wrong choice, maybe, but guts nonetheless." "It was the right choice," Rachel said. "I just don't know what we do now." Evan was already pulling up the laptop. "We need to find another node. There has to be more than one coordination point." "There isn't," Chen said. Phoenix was it. Echo 7 in New Mexico and Phoenix in Arizona. Those were the only two nodes. We already know Echo 7 is a trap. Then we go to Echo 7 anyway, Tom said. Spring the trap and fight our way through. That's suicide. Better than sitting here watching the clock run down. Tom's voice was hard. Operation Blackout is in 54 hours. We tried the quiet way. Time for the loud way. Rachel thought about it. Echo 7 was reinforced, waiting for them. Going there would be walking into a kill box. But what choice did they have? How many hostiles at Echo 7? She asked Chen. Last I saw, 20 plus. Tactical team, military contractors, armed and dug in. 20 against 4, Evan said. Great odds. 5, Morrison corrected. I'm coming. You don't have to. I'm coming, Morrison repeated. Someone needs to keep you idiots alive. Rachel looked at the rest of them. Tom injured but determined. Evan scared but resolute. Chen exhausted but committed. Morrison, a small-town deputy who'd thrown away his career to help strangers. This was her team. Outgunned, outmanned, hunted by the most advanced surveillance system ever built. But they were all she had. Echo 7 it is, she said. We go in loud, we go in fast, and we burn that place to the ground. They drove through the night, heading east toward New Mexico. Morrison pushed the van hard, staying on back roads but making good time. Tom slept in the back, medicated by Doc Jensen before they'd left Phoenix. Evan worked on his laptop, trying to find weaknesses in Echo 7's security. Chen stared out the window, silent. Rachel sat in the passenger seat, watching the desert blur past. Her mind kept returning to the moment in the server room, the choice she'd made. The upload at 97%. She'd saved 12 soldiers, maybe. But in doing so, she'd condemned herself and everyone with her. Operation Blackout would proceed. Thousands would die, and it would be her fault for not pulling the trigger when she had the chance. You made the right call, Morrison said quietly. Rachel glanced at him. How do you know? Because you're not second-guessing it. He kept his eyes on the road. In my experience, when people make the wrong choice, they spend all their time trying to justify it. You're not justifying. You're planning the next move. That tells me you know, deep down, that you did right. Even if it costs us everything? Especially then. Morrison smiled slightly. The easy choices don't define you. The hard ones do. They reached the New Mexico border at dawn. White Sands Missile Range sprawled across the horizon. Thousands of square miles of restricted military territory. Echo 7 was somewhere in that expanse, hidden among testing facilities and training ranges. We need better intel, Rachel said. Current disposition of forces, patrol patterns, access points. I might be able to help with that, Chen said. She'd been quiet for hours, but now she pulled out her tablet. I still have access to some DARPA systems, not the ones they've locked me out of, but auxiliary databases. Facility blueprints, equipment manifests, personnel rosters. Can you get Echo 7's layout? Chen's fingers flew across the screen. Pulling it now, give me 5 minutes. Rachel watched the landscape change as they drove deeper into the missile range. The terrain was harsh, unforgiving. Testing sites dotted the desert, blast craters, bunkers, ranges where weapons were fired and measured and refined. This was where America built its arsenal, where engineers turned science into warfare. And somewhere in this vast emptiness, a coordination node was orchestrating an attack on American civilians. Chen held up her tablet. Got it. Echo 7, full layout. They pulled over, gathered around the screen. The facility was larger than Rachel expected. 3 buildings arranged in a triangle, connected by underground tunnels. The coordination node was in Building 2, buried 2 floors below ground. To reach it, they'd have to breach the perimeter, fight through Building 1, access the tunnels, and assault the server room, all while under fire from 20-plus hostiles. "This is impossible," Evan said. "It's difficult," Tom corrected. "Impossible would be doing it without help." "We don't have help," Tom smiled. "We have something better. We have bait." He explained his plan. It was crazy, reckless, and had about a dozen ways to go wrong. But it was the only plan that had any chance of working. Rachel listened, calculating odds, weighing variables. When Tom finished, she looked at Morrison. "Can you do your part?" "I can make some calls, call in favors, but it'll take time." "We don't have time." "Then I'll make it fast." Morrison pulled out his phone. "But if this works, we're going to have a lot of angry people asking questions." "Let them ask," Rachel said. "We'll be too busy stopping a terrorist attack to answer." Morrison made his calls. It took him 2 hours, and Rachel could hear the urgency in his voice as he negotiated with contacts, pulled strings, cashed in 34 years of goodwill. When he hung up from the last call, he looked exhausted. "It's done. You've got 4 hours. After that, all bets are off." "4 hours is all we need," Tom said. They drove to a position 3 miles from Echo 7, using terrain features for cover. This close to the facility, they couldn't risk detection. They camouflaged the van and waited for Morrison's plan to take effect. At 1400 hours, Rachel heard it. Helicopters. Multiple birds coming in fast from the north. "Right on time," Morrison said. The helicopters swept over the missile range, 6 Black Hawks in tactical formation. They weren't real military. Morrison had called in a training exercise, a routine security drill that happened to overlap with Echo 7's location. But to anyone watching from the facility, they looked like an incoming assault. The effect was immediate. Through her rifle scope, Rachel watched Echo 7 go into lockdown. Personnel scrambling, defensive positions being manned, communications lighting up as commanders tried to figure out what was happening. In the confusion, nobody noticed 4 people moving through the perimeter on foot. They came in from the east, using a drainage culvert that ran under the perimeter fence. The culvert was tight, barely 3 feet across, filled with stagnant water and mud. They crawled through it on their bellies, rifles dragging, packs soaked. Tom gritted his teeth against the pain in his leg, but he kept moving. They emerged inside the perimeter, 200 meters from Building 1. The helicopters were making their second pass, drawing all attention skyward. Rachel used the distraction to lead her team across open ground to the building's rear entrance. Evan went to work on the electronic lock. This time he used a bypass tool Morrison had provided, a device that mimicked security badges, cycling through frequencies until it found the right one. The lock clicked open. They were in. The interior was industrial, concrete floors, harsh lighting, the hum of ventilation systems. Chen led them through the layout she'd memorized, navigating corridors toward the tunnel access. They encountered their first guard at a junction, a contractor in tactical gear, radio in hand, focused on the commotion outside. Rachel dropped him with a single shot, suppressed but still loud in the enclosed space. They moved fast before anyone could respond. The tunnel entrance was behind a security door that required biometric access. Chen pressed her hand to the scanner. It rejected her. "They locked me out," she said. "Then we go through," Tom said. Morrison pulled out the tactical ram he'd brought from the evidence locker. 3 hits and the door buckled inward. Alarms shrieked. Their window was closing. They descended into the tunnel, a concrete tube that stretched into darkness. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Rachel moved at a tactical pace, rifle up, checking angles. Halfway through the tunnel, they hit resistance. 4 contractors armed with rifles, firing from behind improvised barricades. Rachel returned fire, forcing them into cover. Evan flanked left. Tom flanked right. Morrison lay down, suppressing fire, while Rachel advanced. The firefight lasted 30 seconds. When it was over, all 4 contractors were down. Rachel kept moving, reloading on the run. Her last magazine. After this, she was done. The tunnel ended at another security door. This one was reinforced steel, designed to withstand assault. But Morrison had anticipated this. He pulled out a thermite charge, another gift from the evidence locker. "Where'd you get thermite?" Evan asked. "You don't want to know." Morrison placed the charge on the door hinges and set a 30-second timer. They took cover behind the concrete tunnel walls. The thermite ignited with a white-hot flare, burning through the steel like paper. When the smoke cleared, the door hung crooked on melted hinges. Tom kicked it in. Beyond was Building 2's basement level. The server room was at the far end, behind one last security checkpoint. And between them and the server room stood 12 contractors in full tactical gear. The contractors opened fire the moment they saw movement. Rachel dove behind a concrete pillar as rounds sparked off the walls around her. Tom and Evan took cover on the opposite side. Morrison and Chen were pinned down at the tunnel entrance. 12 against 5. No cover, limited ammunition, bad odds that were about to get worse. "Suppressing fire!" Rachel shouted. She leaned out and fired in controlled bursts, not aiming to hit, but to keep the contractors behind cover. Tom and Evan did the same, creating a crossfire that limited the contractors' ability to advance. But Rachel's rifle clicked empty on the third burst. She dropped it and drew her sidearm. 15 rounds left. She made them count. Morrison was firing methodically, picking targets with the precision of someone who'd spent decades on the range. Each shot dropped a contractor or forced them to cover. But they were still outnumbered and outgunned. Then Chen did something unexpected. She pulled out her tablet, fingers flying across the screen. "I'm still in the security system. I can control the lighting, ventilation, door locks." The lights went out. The basement plunged into darkness. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then emergency lighting kicked in, dim red glow that turned everything into shadows. But 3 seconds was enough. Rachel rushed forward, using the darkness to close the distance. She came up on the first contractor before he could react, putting 2 rounds center mass. She dropped, rolled, came up on the second contractor's blind side. Tom was moving too, favoring his injured leg, but still lethal. He dropped 2 contractors with precise headshots, then shifted position before return fire could find him. Evan wasn't a trained operator, but he was learning fast. He used his smaller profile to stay low, firing from unexpected angles, forcing the contractors to split their attention. Morrison advanced like a machine, methodical and unstoppable. Every shot hit, every movement calculated. The contractors broke. They'd expected an easy kill, wounded fugitives, desperate and outgunned. Instead, they got a coordinated assault by people who had nothing left to lose. The surviving contractors retreated toward the server room, trying to regroup. But Chen had other ideas. She triggered the fire suppression system. CO2 flooded the basement, white mist filling the space, choking visibility. The contractors were blind, confused, firing at shadows. Rachel used the confusion to reach the server room door. It was sealed, electronic lock flashing red. "Chen, door! Working on it!" The lock turned green. Rachel pushed through into the server room. It was smaller than Phoenix, just 2 racks of servers, but these were the ones that mattered. The coordination node for Echo 7, and through it, the entire tracking network. Evan followed her in, laptop already open. "I need 60 seconds. You've got 30. Evan plugged in the USB drive and initiated the upload. This time, there was no conflicting operation, no friendly forces at risk, just the kill code and the system that needed to die. The progress bar raced across the screen. 10%, 30, 50. Outside the server room, Rachel heard gunfire. Tom and Morrison were holding the door, keeping the contractors at bay. 70%, 90. "Come on," Evan muttered. 100%. The upload completed. The kill code propagated through the network, worming its way into every node, every connection, every system that relied on the coordination protocol. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every screen in the server room went dark. The LEDs on the server racks stopped blinking. The hum of the cooling systems died. The network was offline. "It's done," Evan said quietly. Rachel felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in 36 hours, the system wasn't hunting her. The invisible enemy was dead. But they weren't safe yet. "Exfil!" she shouted. "We move now!" They ran back through the basement, past the bodies of contractors, through the tunnel, up into Building 1. The facility was in chaos, alarms blaring, personnel scrambling, helicopters still circling overhead. Morrison led them to an emergency exit that opened onto the vehicle lot. He'd parked the van here during the confusion, right where they needed it. They piled in. Morrison gunned the engine and drove straight for the main gate. The guard there raised his weapon, shouting for them to stop. Morrison didn't slow down. The guard dove aside as the van smashed through the barrier, scattering wood and metal. They were through the perimeter, racing across the desert, leaving Echo 7 behind. No pursuit followed. The facility was too confused, too focused on the supposed helicopter assault to react quickly. By the time they figured out what had really happened, Rachel and her team were 20 miles away. They ditched the van 50 miles from Echo 7 and switched to a vehicle Morrison had stashed, a beat-up sedan that looked like 1,000 others on the road. They drove north, away from the missile range, away from Phoenix, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the chaos they'd left behind. Nobody spoke for the first hour. They were too exhausted, too wrung out, to process what had just happened. Finally, Tom broke the silence. "Did it work? Is Operation Blackout stopped?" Evan checked his laptop. The kill code had propagated across the network, shutting down every node, every connection. The tracking system was dead, but that didn't mean Blackout was stopped. "The coordination node is offline," Evan said. "That means they can't use the automated network to coordinate the attacks. But the individual cells could still execute independently if they have local instructions." "So we bought time, but didn't stop it," Rachel said. "We did more than that." Chen was looking at her tablet, scrolling through data. The kill code didn't just shut down the network. It also dumped the entire database, every communication, every transaction, every piece of evidence about who was running the operation. It's all here. "Can we use it?" "We can give it to people who can." Chen pulled up a list of names and departments. FBI, NSA, Department of Homeland Security. With this evidence, they can roll up the entire conspiracy. Rachel thought about it. They had the evidence. They'd stopped the tracking network. But Operation Blackout was still ticking down, now just 42 hours away. "We need to get this to someone who can act on it," she said. "Someone with authority to stop Blackout before the deadline." "That's going to be a problem," Morrison said, "because by now, everyone's looking for us. Federal manhunt. We try to walk into an FBI office, we'll be arrested on sight." "Then we don't walk in," Rachel said. "We make them come to us." They found a rest stop with public Wi-Fi and anonymous internet access. Evans set up his laptop and began uploading the evidence to a secure drop site, one used by journalists and whistleblowers to share classified information. The files were huge, thousands of pages of communications and financial records. The upload would take hours. While Evan worked, Rachel composed a message. It was addressed to no one and everyone, a statement explaining what they'd found, what they'd done, and why they'd done it. She wrote about the tracking network, the insider conspiracy, Operation Blackout. She laid out the evidence, provided timestamps and locations, gave enough detail that any investigator could verify the claims. And then she took responsibility. "My name is Rachel Cole, First Lieutenant, United States Army. I am wanted for questioning in connection with multiple crimes, including theft of classified materials, destruction of government property, and assault on federal personnel. I committed these crimes to stop a terrorist attack on American soil. The evidence attached to this message proves that a surveillance network designed to protect Americans has been weaponized to hunt them. It proves that foreign intelligence services have infiltrated our own infrastructure. And it proves that Operation Blackout, a coordinated attack on critical infrastructure scheduled for 42 hours from now, is real and imminent. I could not stop this attack through proper channels because the people running it have access to those channels. I could not allow it to proceed and do nothing. So I broke the law. I destroyed the network. And I'm releasing this evidence to the public so that someone with the authority and ability to act can stop what's coming. If that makes me a criminal, so be it. I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'm keeping that oath. She signed it with her name, rank, and service number. Evan finished the upload and published the package to multiple sites simultaneously. News organizations, government transparency platforms, social media. Within minutes, it was everywhere. The story broke like a thunderclap. Rachel's face was suddenly on every news channel, not as a wanted fugitive, but as a whistleblower. The evidence she'd released was too detailed, too comprehensive to ignore. Journalists started making calls. Lawmakers demanded investigations. Within hours, federal agencies were mobilizing. And 40 hours before Operation Blackout was scheduled to execute, the FBI and NSA raided 17 locations across 3 states, arresting the conspirators and seizing their equipment. The attack was stopped. Not by Rachel, not by her team, but by the institutions that were designed to protect the country once they finally knew where to look. Rachel watched the news coverage from a motel room in Colorado, far from New Mexico and the chaos she'd left behind. Tom sat beside her, leg propped up, still recovering. Evan and Chen were in the next room. Morrison had left hours earlier, heading back to his small town, his job, his life. He'd said goodbye with a handshake and a smile. "You did good, kid. Despite everything, you did good." The news anchor was talking about arrests, investigations, a national security scandal that would take years to unravel. They showed Rachel's picture, her military ID photo, young and idealistic. "They're going to arrest you," Tom said quietly. "I know. You'll face charges, probably prison time." "I know. Was it worth it?" Rachel thought about the 12 operators in Syria, still alive because she'd aborted the upload in Phoenix. She thought about the thousands of civilians who'd been saved when Operation Blackout was disrupted. She thought about Tom, Evan, Chen, Morrison, people she'd known for less than 48 hours who'd become the most important people in her life. "Yes," she said, "it was worth it." 3 days later, Rachel Cole surrendered to federal authorities at a field office in Denver. She was arrested, processed, and charged with a dozen crimes. The trial would take months. The verdict was uncertain. But the tracking network was dead. The conspiracy was exposed, and Operation Blackout was stopped. Sometimes the right thing and the legal thing aren't the same. Rachel had chosen the right thing, and whatever came next, she could live with that choice.